Hey everyone, Couch Investor back to another video for today. So here I am again talking about Intel. I know there are very few of you that are fans of this company because you own AMD, Nvidia, ASML, or just dislike Intel for one reason or another. And that's completely understandable because the company and the stock has been underperforming for years now. And that's why AMD, Nvidia have been outperforming and taking market share of Intel. That's also why Intel is trading at a very, very low multiple compared to the industry average, which is at around 20 or something like that, while Intel sits at around 11, a PE ratio. And if you compare that to AMD, for example, AMD is at around 37, 38. So let's say if the market suddenly decides to give Intel AMD's multiple, Intel will suddenly be worth more than $700 billion. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen because, well, AMD is growing much faster than Intel right now. That's also the reason why Intel's multiples have been extremely low in the last couple of years, because the company, the stock hasn't been moving much. The company hasn't really been innovating that much, but that is obviously going to change. Hopefully we can trust management. I can trust management and in their plans, their new announcements for their GPUs, their new Foundry services. I think this will really help Intel in the next coming years. This is not going to happen overnight, but in the next coming years, their plan is to be right at the top around 2024, 2025. But I'm here buying Intel for the next 10 years because I do believe that in 2030, they might be closer to $1 trillion. Now, obviously, this is just speculations from my part. But like I said in previous videos, AMD, Nvidia, ASML, TSMC, they're all going to make more and more chips each and every year. They're going to sell more each and every year because we need more semiconductors. Now, with Intel being an American company, Intel still being the largest out there, building foundries in the United States, this is going to help them a lot for the future. So that is why I'm bullish, but I'm going to explain way more in detail in this video. But before I do so, I just want to thank today's sponsor, The Motley Fool. And again, these are my views and my views only. The Motley Fool is a company that provides investing insight and stock recommendations for investors of all skill sets and risk levels. You guys know I love finding new investing tools and resources to help me find the latest growth stock and innovative company. And right now I have a discount for one of my favorite services, the Fool offers. Through the Motley Fool's stock advisor service, you get access to a ton of expert stock picks. Every month you'll get 2 picks that are aimed at growing your wealth and to help you realize your financial goals. Stock Advisor's average stock picks have returned over 500%. If growing your money is something you'd like to do more this year, you can visit www.fool.com/couchinvestor or click on the link below for access to my special offer and decide if Stock Advisor is right for you. Now let's dive into this. Alright, first a quick recap of what I said in my previous videos. Obviously, all videos will be in the top right corner. Talked about AMD and Nvidia and ASML as well. I'm bullish on all of those companies, but I personally just own Intel right now. I used to own AMD and Nvidia, but obviously if you've been following me for a while, you know I regret selling it too early. That doesn't mean that I don't love those companies, but Intel has announced a couple of months back that it intends to invest $20 billion in its Arizona facility and $3.8 billion in its New Mexico site. Now, these investments also mean that Intel will build chips for other clients, a business very similar to that of TSMC that will be called Intel Foundry Services. Now, Intel also announced that it has already recruited Amazon Web Services and Qualcomm as one of their first big clients. So that's very, very positive. I believe Microsoft is also one of those clients because we've seen Satya Nadella in the presentation with Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger. So obviously that makes sense. Now, before I jump into the GPU segment, I just want to show you a bit their balance sheet. So you can see here that revenue is much higher than AMD, for example, or even Nvidia. It sits here, let's take the non-GAAP one, at $18.5 billion. Yet it's not up 20%, 50% or whatever. It's just up 2% year over year. Like we said, Intel's business has not been doing great, but earnings per share are up 12% year over year, which is actually not that bad at all. Now, going into the key segment, the key businesses. So we have here CCG, Client Computing Group, that's up 6% year over year. Data Center Group is down 9%. That's something that you will have to look for in the next quarters. Now, Internet of Things, you have here Mobileye, which is up 124%. I said that in my previous video. Be on the lookout for this segment because as more and more vehicles become much smarter, look out for this segment for Intel. It's a segment that not a lot of people are talking about. Then the Internet of Things ones is up 47%, so quite nicely as well. Obviously, both of them here are not really contributing that much as of today, but that will change in the future. And then you have those last two segments here, NSG and PSG, not the football team, down 34% and down 3%. So now let's go back into the GPU announcements. So Intel announced their new GPUs called Arc that should compete with AMD's and Nvidia's that will launch in early 2022. Intel has not disclosed any specific hardware configurations, and it also hasn't gone into any detail about clock speed, the memory interface, or the amount of type of RAM that the first Arc GPUs will include. Now, obviously, until these GPUs get out there, we can't really compare one to another, but again, we just have to trust management on this. But there's also another news that came out, and that's that Intel has actually made the move that could stop its more technologically advanced peers in their tracks. What does that mean? Well, Chinese media outlet UDN has reported that Intel has grabbed the majority of TSMC's 3nm process nodes order for the production of its next generation chips. This basically means that Intel will devote this capacity to the GPUs and server chips instead of the consumer market CPUs, but this could hamper the ability of AMD and Apple to increase capacity as neither companies currently operates fabs of its own. So this is another strategic move by Intel. They basically know that right now they're not yet at the level of TSMC. So basically what are they doing? They're basically using right now TSMC, but they're using all of the remaining production capabilities that TSMC has to offer, because what will happen if AMD or Apple needs more chips? Well, TSMC might not have the time, might not have the capability to produce anymore, and that means that Intel might suddenly win a couple of percent of market share again, because those are unable to produce, to sell more chips. This is another strategic move that I really like, but obviously AMD, Apple are already very big customers of TSMC. Now this in turn will help Intel take some time and do what it has to do to obviously improve their own in-house capabilities, but it's good to see that they're not afraid to use one of their major competitors to improve their own products. Now, last two things. Remember in my last video I said that obviously Intel, being an American company, is going to get the support of the United States government because most of the semiconductor industry right now is located in Asia. And right now the geopolitical situation there in Taiwan, China, is not that great. And so it was announced this week that Intel wins the US government project to develop leading edge foundry ecosystem. It's always great to see an American company getting backed by its own government, and in this case it's extremely important that they do so because, well, most or the majority of US-based chip designers are fabless, which means that they design and sell integrated circuits that are fabricated by contract manufacturers called foundries. And like I said before, the majority of them are concentrated in Asia. So in the long term, this will help Intel's foundry services a lot because, well, American companies might not want to rely heavily on the Asian ones. They might rely more on American ones. The same thing for European companies. They might prefer to order a bit more right now in the United States than order it all in Taiwan or in China or in Korea. Now, obviously, TSMC and Samsung will also be building more in the United States. But again, Intel being an American company will probably have more advantages. Now, before I end this video, there's one more thing I want to add, and that is that Intel is not afraid to acquire other companies. We've seen the rumors of them willing to acquire GlobalFoundries for around $30 billion. Now, last year, GlobalFoundries had revenues of $5.5 billion for the whole year. So that's not as much as Intel, obviously, but it's still very close to what Nvidia is actually doing. Now, GlobalFoundries business is very different to what Intel, AMD, and Nvidia are doing. They are basically producing semiconductors for everything else that is not mobile, desktop, or laptop. But Intel CEO says that the semiconductor industry will continue to consolidate, meaning that the smaller companies will probably be bought up or merged with the bigger ones. As it says here, there will be a consolidation in the industry. That trend will continue, and I expect that we're going to be a consolidator. Now, obviously, regarding the GlobalFoundries rumors, right now these are just rumors, but this just shows me that management is not going to allow Intel to slack anymore. The last couple of years, Intel has basically done nothing to catch up to its main competitors out there. Right now that is changing, and what better time to do so than in a chip shortage, because they know very well that everything that's going to get produced is going to sell because the demand is very, very high right now. Now, this doesn't mean obviously that AMD or Nvidia are going out of business or are going to lose billions of dollars because of it. No, on the contrary, this just means that us, the consumer, will suddenly have more choice out there. So to conclude, I'm bullish on Intel. I know very well that this is going to take a long time before my investments actually make sense. I'm okay with that long term on that position. I don't expect them to become suddenly a $500 or $1 trillion company overnight. It will take time. Intel's Foundry services is going to be a huge part of their business, and who knows, maybe they might attract Apple again in the future. We will see, but again, Intel being an American company is certainly going to help with that. And that will be it for this video. Let me know down in the comments below if you actually own Intel stock, because I think very few of you actually do. I know a lot of you own AMD, Nvidia, ASML, but let me know down in the comments below. And if you like this video, leave it a thumbs up. If you aren't subscribed to this channel, maybe hit that subscribe button. As always guys, take care, stay safe, and see you all in the next video. Bye bye.